Now the watch that you can see in front of you is a Fusee pocket watch. It's solid silver. It was made by a watchmaker called Mr. Needham, working in London, and this particular piece was made in the year 1879. Now a Fusee watch has a tiny little chain in it called a Fusee chain, which wraps around a thing called a Fusee cone, and you have to deal with it with considerable care. Now this is the second in a two-part series. In the first video I dealt with the disassembly of the watch, which is actually quite a tricky thing when you have a watch with a tiny little chain in it under tension, because if you don't deal with that issue and release the tension on the mainspring properly, you will break the Fusee chain. The reassembly of the watch, which is what I am dealing with in this video, is a little bit more straightforward, but nevertheless you can't relax completely or it will catch you out. Anyway, we're going to start with the watch completely disassembled, and we're going to put this beautiful watch by Mr. Needham back together to the state that you can see it here now. So let's get on with it. So that's the movement disassembled. So time to put it all back together and lubricate it. So let's do that now. Okay, so we've got the main plate now back in the movement holder, and I've only put it in lightly because in a minute we're going to swap it out for the other plate. And I've put the first components back in. We have this little spring here, and this component, which is called the Fusee maintaining power detent, that goes back in its hole, but it's helpful for when we're going to put this back together, just to move it 180 degrees from where it's going to end up. The Fusee cone turns in here, and this sort of prong here, curved prong, ratchets against the side of the Fusee cone, but it's much easier to put it together if you just start with this 180 degrees from where it's going to end up. So I'm just going to put this plate to one side now, and I'm going to get the top plate in now and start putting some more of the components in. So let's do that. Okay, so here's the bottom plate now in the movement holder, and I put it in, just pinched it up there securely. And the first component that we're going to put in is the lever. Now before I put that in, I am actually going to lubricate the pivots. So let's just take a look at that. Here is the component. Okay, that is the lever. So I'm just going to do a close-up now of the lubricating the pivots of this, and then the process. Not only the pivots, also the pallets themselves, and those are the bits, of course, that move against the escape wheel. So lubrication there is quite important. And this is the grease that we are going to use for the pallets. As you can see, it is a Mobius 9415, and as you can see, it's a pretty dinky bottle as well, and hugely expensive, but very, very important to make sure that the escapement is properly lubricated. So we're just going to apply a little bit of this now. Okay, so coming in with the smallest diameter oiler that I've got, and just apply a little bit to that pallet. It's kind of tricky to do and film. And just go to the other side very gently and just apply some to that pallet as well. And there we have it. So I'm also going to apply some Mobius lubricant to the pivots on the lever as well, but I shan't film that. I'm just going to do that and then pop that in to where it rests on the movement. Okay, so we've got the bottom plate now with the main components that we need in before we place the top plate over the top of it, which is a tricky thing to do, and there's normally a little bit of wiggling around to get it to fit. So I'm only going to film part of this, and I'll get to the next stage and we'll pick it up from there. So it takes a little bit of jiggling around to get it right. The things to watch out for when you push these two plates together particularly is the lever and the pivots. Just make sure the whole time you're doing it that the lever stays perpendicular to the two plates, because if it comes off at an angle and you squeeze the plates together, you're going to snap off the pivot, and that's going to be a major problem. So those two are together now. The next thing that we are going to do is actually fit the third wheel bar. Let me just show you that component again. In this instance, it's got quite a lot of jewels on it. This component here, we're actually going to fit it across here, but not yet put the third wheel in, and I'll explain why that is the case a little bit later. So we're going to do that, and then we're going to put the barrel in, and then we'll take it the next step further from there. Okay, so there is the third wheel bar back in. As you do it, you just need to be careful that the pivots are coming through the jewels nice and neatly. So this is the escape wheel. Okay, we have got here the, this is the escape wheel. This is the lever. This is the fourth wheel, and the missing third wheel in here, which we're going to put in a little bit later. The next thing we're going to do then is flip the movement over and pop in the pegs to secure the two plates together, and then pop in the mainspring, the barrel. Okay. So I don't know whether you remember, but such a long video. But some of the pins that were retaining the two plates together had seen better days. So I've got a selection here of replacement pins, and I'm just going to size a few of these up and cut them to size so that when we secure the plates together, they're done with nice new pins. So just going to do that as well now. Okay, it's called a pin vise for a reason, because it's good at holding pins. So I've just got one of these pins in the pin vise at the moment. It's too long, so I'm just going to come in with the clippers here and just gently clip off the end that we don't need. Pop like that. Okay, now that will be just the right size now for securing the plates together. So I'm going to pop that in now. And nice and close up here, you can see there is the new pin through the post holding the plates together. And of course, because it is fatter at one end than the other, it's conical in shape, then as you push it in, it has the effect of squeezing the plates together. And you can see the jewels here as well with the pivots coming through, and you can see just what a nice quality movement this is. Okay, and there's slow and there's fast on the regulator. So what we're going to do now is put the mainspring back in. The barrel on this watch is not jeweled, so we've got metal against metal here, which is never an ideal solution. So we're going to put some nice modern Swiss grease on that. So just going to come in here and just gently put, don't want to put too much, just a little drop there, and that will find its way between the pieces of metal there. And we're just going to flip that over and pop that in the movement like so, and there you see Okay, so next thing we're going to do is just pop the barrel bridge on there. So there is the barrel bridge back in, so we just need to take the 2 retaining screws and screw that on. So just placing one of these here, like so, and get the other as well. Let's pop that there. Okay, and coming in with the right screwdriver. And here is the movement together, minus the third wheel and minus the chain. So what we're going to do now is put those into the movement, but in the reverse order. So firstly, we're going to fix the chain on between the barrel here and the Fusee cone, and I'm going to explain how we do that in a moment. And when we've done that, we will tension it up using the setup ratchet, which is here. That'll focus for me. Let's just try and get this thing to focus. There we go. This is the setup ratchet arbor here, and there is a little lever here and a ratchet wheel here. And we'll use that to tension up the chain once we've got the chain on. So the first thing that we're going to do is take the chain and we're going to pass it. Now this is important to get this right. We're going to pass it behind, in this direction, behind these 2 pillars. So it literally falls down through there with the pointy end, the sort of speared end of the chain at the top, because that's going to fit against the barrel, and the simple hook end at the bottom. So I'm just going to do that now and then show you the next stage. So there you can see what we want to achieve firstly with the chain. It's passed behind those 2 pillars, and we've got the top part of the chain with the little pointy end at the barrel, and the first thing we're going to do is attach that to the barrel and wind up a little bit of a slack onto the barrel before we attach the other end to the Fusee cone. So I'm going to do that now. So we have the chain on the barrel there. We'll just put the key onto the setup ratchet arbor and just turn very gently and wind the chain onto the barrel, and that will just take up some of the slack before we put the other end on. So there you can go, you can see the second turn coming in there. Okay, once we've got enough of the slack out the way, we're going to put the other end on. And now getting up really close at the Fusee cone end, you'll see that there's a little slit in the one of the bottom tiers of the Fusee cone, and that's where the hook inserts. You can see there, if I just trace the chain into the cone, so there's the chain, and trace it in with the focus into the slot on the cone there, and then we're just going to wind that back to tension that up. Okay, so we've now got the chain fixed on both ends and fully wound onto the barrel. So if we were then to try and wind the chain further onto the barrel, you're going to hit the tension on the mainspring. Okay, so you just see there, as I turn it, there's a little bit of tension on the mainspring itself. Okay, so I've replaced the setup ratchet. I put the ratchet wheel here on the arbor and then pushed it round a couple of clicks. Just a couple of clicks will do it, don't do more than that. And then locked it in with the lever here. And the last thing that I've got to do is just tension that up with a screwdriver. Make sure that that is at the right tension. And that's pretty good. Okay, so that's done. That is the chain back on. The next thing to do is to lift off the third wheel bar, and now the chain is back on, we can pop the third wheel in. So I'm going to do that. And there we have the third wheel bar off, so we can just take the third wheel now and place it back inside the movement. So it goes with the wheel itself uppermost, and just carefully placing it where it lives. Now there is a little bit of tension on the chain here, so you have to be careful at this point and just get all the wheel and the pinions aligned. Don't force anything, and then we're going to pop the bar back on. Okay, so we've got the third wheel in here, and it's important just to make sure it's aligned properly, and then very carefully we're going to take the third wheel bar, which is just living under here for a moment, and we're going to place that back on. Now the key thing here, before you tighten anything up, is to make sure that all the pivots, both at this end and the other end, are in their respective jewels, because if they're not and you tighten it up, you will crunch a pivot off, which will be exasperating in the extreme. So just going to pop that back on now and carefully do that. And there is the third wheel bar back on. I'm just going to give a close-up now of what you should see through your loop when you're looking at the pivots, just to make sure that everything is good before you tighten this up, and then we will tighten it up. And there you can clearly see in the middle of the frame there now the fourth wheel pivot sticking right the way through the jewel there, and that's where the second hand's going to go. So you want to be seeing that. You want to be seeing the pivot in the other. I don't know whether you can actually see that. It's a little bit difficult with this camera, but the pivot is there inside that jewel, and likewise also in the center. You can just about see it there, I think, although it is a little bit tricky with this light and camera. But yeah, do a good visual inspection. Also check that you haven't dislodged the lever whilst you're doing that. You shouldn't have, because the plates were held together pretty tightly, but all that is looking good now. So we're just going to put a screw in that nicely threaded hole there, and another one at the other end to secure all that down. So having checked those and popped the screws back in here and here, we're just ready to tighten those down now. So let's just do that. And you shouldn't really feel any pressure here until the two plates come together. If you do, then you need to recheck the positioning of the pivots, because really they should be plain sailing all the way till you get the two plates pushing together. So that is located now, and that really is the most difficult part. I keep on saying this of the reassembly of this watch done. What we're going to do now is pop the balance in and just check, once we put some power on the watch, that the watch starts to function. So let's do that. So putting the balance on is the reverse process of taking it off, unsurprisingly. You've just got to make sure that when you put it in, that the impulse jewel is located properly between the end of the lever, so that it can function properly. So in this orientation, the lever is actually along here in this direction, and the impulse jewel is about here underneath the roller plate when you put it in. So Yeah, and then it secures with the screw here, and then we'll just pop the top on and secure the hairspring with a peg here. So I'm just going to do that lot now and see if we can't get the watch to function. Okay, just shooting this with the sun actually behind me just to show just how well the silver has come up, because I have done the cleaning on this now, and this lovely little Fusee watch is ready to put back together. So as you can see, the case is nice and shiny and clean. I've decided that the glass that's in there is good enough. As a general rule, I think you should only really change something if it really needs changing. You can see there's a little bit of pitting on it there. I have the new, if I can get it in the shot here, I've got the new, oops, upside down, hang about. This is the new Sterncruise glass to go in it, but I'm not going to fit it because the one that's in it I think is better quality, and it has a little bit of pitting on it, but it's okay. There's the movement all ready to go, and the observation window there on the balance has come up nicely as well, so that's staying too. Just catch that in the light, as you can see there, it's nice. The dial has come up nicely. There's still a tiny little bit of hairline cracking on there, but you know, this is a 1879 watch, and you know, if it shows that a little bit, I think that's okay. We've got the hour wheel there, and you can see that I've now provisioned a dial washer on top of that, right in the center of the frame there now. And then to the left of that, you can see the minute wheel and the hands, which you can also nice and shiny as well, because I've polished those too. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is just pop this lot back together. So let's do that. So bringing the minute wheel in, popping it there, and make sure that it sits nicely with the teeth on the cannon pinion there. Just getting with my loop, see what's going on. Okay, that's nice and flat. And then just a tiny little bit more lubrication for the hour wheel. Just a bit on there. There we go, that's nice. And popping the hour wheel on. And that is the motion works done. Just going to seat that in, so that's nice and flat, and that's good. Okay, right. And the dial washer here helps to press down and keep the hour wheel flat against the minute wheel there, so that's good. So the next thing we've got to do is pop the dial on. Okay, we orientate it like that, then we've got the 12 o'clock at the 12 o'clock position. That'll make life easy for us. Just bring the dial in and drop it on top, and beautifully made Victorian piece of kit falls into place, he said. Hang on, there we go. Nice. So I'm going to flip that over now and put in the pegs that hold that into place, little brass pegs. I shan't film that. I'm just going to do that, and then I'll do a time-lapse film of putting the watch back in the case and putting the hands on. So I'm going to do that now. And there it is, with the hands all nicely lined up exactly as they should be at noon or midnight. And you know, with most pocket watches you don't get a date complication, so you know, you don't have to worry about kicking that over. You don't have to worry about kicking that over at midnight and setting the hands for that like this. So it's a complication that you don't have often with these watches. So let's wind her up and watch her go. And there is the watch working, and if you look closely you can just see the minute hand there moving very slowly across the minute markings, and there it is going to the first minute. So when I finish a watch like this, I always just check this to make sure that the motion works are working properly, that the cannon pinion is, you know, binding nicely to the center wheel pivot, and yeah, that's all looking good at the moment. It's really nice and smooth. And there is the watch running nicely. You can just see the top end of the minute hand that's just catching the light there, moving towards, you know, the first Roman numeral. So you know, all this is looking good. Guys, if you enjoy my videos, then please subscribe. I'm, you know, trying to make the best content that I can, stuff that's, you know, fun to watch and interesting. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to making my next video. I really hope you enjoyed this one, and you know, until next time here at the Watch Bench, I wish you guys all the best. God bless. Bye.